I picked up my pen and I started to write about passion and people and a daily plight, about what they've known and what they could know. I picked up my pen and it started to flow. I wrote about nations, I wrote about towns, the falling of strongholds and walls coming down. I wrote for the weak, unable to stand, as I wrote about healing for a broken land. I wrote about struggles and the colours of skin. I wrote about racism and where to begin. I wrote about the insults that nobody sees, as I wrote for the child in tears as he flees. I wrote about faith and all we perceive. I wrote for the skeptic and for those who believe. I wrote for the sinner with words that atone.
Welcome, Carl.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice. It's a long time no see. Crikey.
Too long.
It has been too long. It's all right because I've zapped the grids.
Oh,
so
well done. Well done. Oh, that's going back.
that is going back. That's an old story, isn't it? Okay, so I've known you for a long time with your poetry, and you're the second poet I have on my podcast. So it'd be really nice. This is Carl Phillips, everybody. He's a legend in terms of his poetry. So, Carl, do you want to start off and just read one of your poems? It'd be really nice to hear that.
Okay. I'm going to read this one. This is called 10 because it took 10 minutes to write. It's one of those rare occasions where sort of inspiration, an idea, pens and paper close at hand. So this was the result of that time, and this is called 10. I picked up my pen and I started to write about passion and people and a daily plight, about what they've known and what they could know. I picked up my pen and it started to flow. I wrote about nations, I wrote about towns, the falling of strongholds and walls coming down. I wrote for the weak, unable to stand, as I wrote about healing for a broken land. I wrote about struggles and the colours of skin. I wrote about racism and where to begin. I wrote about the insults that nobody sees, as I wrote for the child in tears as he flees. I wrote about faith and all we perceive. I wrote for the skeptic and for those who believe. I wrote for the sinner with words that atone, as I wrote for the lost. There is a way home. I wrote for the future. What have we done? I wrote about rivers and the blackening sun. I wrote for the mother whose children are crying, as I wrote for the planet before her eyes dying. I wrote with a fervour all that I'd seen, from the broken and lonely to poets that dream. And I wrote to inspire each one of them as I closed my eyes and put down my pen.
Thank you. So when did you write that one? I don't think I've heard that one before, Carl.
A while ago, probably in the last 20 years.
In the last 20
Yeah,
years?
yeah.
Oh, maybe
I had to look through some pieces preparing for this, and it's just mad how people can review stuff, and like review was given 12 years ago. I remember writing that, and how the time goes and how we all kind of grow up, and we just kind of like just think comes that's ages ago, but it's still quite prevalent, and I think it's a very me piece because it kind of highlights everything that's passionate about what I do. So it mentions towns and cities, it mentions the environment and the planet, it mentions kind of being a poet, being inspired. I think as poets we're given quite a tough job really to kind of write what we see, but with great responsibility comes great kind of hope, and people can say that was about me, or that was about a situation that I'm in, or that's unlocked the door for me, or that's turned the key, or and you think, okay, brilliant, my job is well worthwhile.
Yeah.
I may not see the results of what I do though, and I'm quite okay with that.
Yeah. I think it's once it's written, it's there forever, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's a legacy, and it might find its way into obscurity for a little while, and then somebody might discover it
Yeah,
after time, as has happened, with all kind of historical stuff, isn't it?
yeah, totally. Yeah, I think also, like I say, 10 minutes, and it's like, where's that come from? But yeah, all good. All good.
Okay, I want you to tell the from your perspective, tell the story of the very funny story, very funny story, interesting story about how I'd walk down the high street in Margate and
That story.
and spotted a little sign in a shop,
You did.
and just pop down there for a minute. Spotted a little sign in the shop that mentioned about poetry, because they're called
Poetry slam.
poetry slams. And I can remember thinking, oh, Cole would like that. So take it from
So
there.
to take it from there. So I get a text from Martin going, I've just walked down Margate High Street and there's a little cafe, bistro-y type place that are putting on a poetry night. I really think you should go. Okay. Now, picture the scene. It's absolutely blowing a gale. It's raining. It's dark. It would mean coming in and rushing out again, grabbing some pieces and thinking, oh, why am I doing this? But something in me just said, you know what? I really think you need to go. So I'm like, okay, I'll grab some pieces, get a bite to eat, turn round, off we go. So I arrive and I go in and there's a girl on the counter saying, oh, hi Carl, how are you? And automatically kind of shutters up. Hang on, what's going on? Are you going to read for us? We'll be the third one on. Okay. So the first guy comes on. He's been there a little bit too long. He's been at the champagne, the wine, and whatever. So he's very much like, okay, now let me tell you about. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me tell you about. I'm thinking, oh dear. So the next guy comes on, and he's about 16, all hair, shoes. Looks at his shoes, pulls out a crumpled bit of paper. He's obviously written this piece on his maths homework or something, and he's like holding it right up to his face. And I'm like, mate, credit for getting up there and having a go. I think it's time to save the night. So I walk on. Hi, I'm Carl. You're going to get 3 pieces tonight. You're going to get a piece called Inspiration, Best Girl in the World. As we're talking about poetry, let's introduce you to poetry. So there's a piece about her. And I thought, as we're in a bar, I thought we'd end it in a pub and a poem called Time, Gentlemen, Please. So I read my pieces. No papers or nothing. Just read it straight off. I go and sit back down. There's a lady in the audience that calls me over. Come and sit with her. I'm like, right, okay. She goes, let's get you a drink. Come and sit with her. So I'm like, okay. She goes, we thought you were brilliant. Okay. Now, as writers, we kind of like those sort of reviews. But the best thing is to say why we thought you were brilliant. And that's exactly what these people did. They said, we thought you were brilliant because you came on, you told people exactly what they were going to get. You read well, you read clear, you read sort of paper free, should we say. And then, fair enough, let poetry go and do its magic with people. You've done it, you've bought it, you go and sit down. Okay? Let me give you some advice, she says. There's no money in poetry. You're joking. Why have I come tonight? You're joking. So she said, but there's money in pages and books. And your poetry has the 3 main elements of a book. So it has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. Instead of writing it in 40 lines, try and write it in 400 pages. When you get home, give me a ring. Here's my card. And you are? I'm Tara Moore. Okay? And you are? I'm a multi-million selling author. Okay. Explain multi-million selling to me. I've just signed a 6-book deal with a Rhyme Publishing. Second two books are out. Third one's on its way, and hopefully the others will follow. She's brilliant. So I got home and I thought, oh, do I really want to write a book? Of course I do. So the book starts off. The book is based on a piece of poetry, so I've just kind of got the framework there already. And the book starts off with the opening line of Natasha Monroe hates Mondays. And with a question like that, you sort of think, okay, why does she hate Mondays? She doesn't just hate them, she absolutely detests them. And it's just basically, without giving too much away, what happens to Natasha on the influence of the movement she is part of. So that's basically it. It took 6 months to write, 2 hours a day, in the evening, 416 pages and 98,000 words.
Yeah. I can remember specifically because we used to pop to the pub, didn't we, in the evenings, and I used to see frequently. Has anybody seen Carl recently? He's disappeared. He's not. I haven't seen him, but not seen him for a couple of weeks. I wonder where he's gone. And a few weeks went by.
Couple of weeks, couple of months.
Couple of months went by, and I'd seen you, and you'd already told me about your meeting with Tara and what you were intending to do, and then all of a sudden you appeared and said, and Carl said to me, I've done it, I've finished it, I've written the book. You got all that time, and a couple of things that stuck with me at that time was you said to me that Tara had said to you, don't get it right, get it written.
Just get the idea down.
Get everything down, and then build it from there, tidy it all up from there. So you wrote your book. What happened? Is anything happened with it? Anything happened with it?
Yeah, we. So I'm writing this book, and the thing is, it's a lonely life being a writer, because as much as you've got, a million characters to chat to. Somebody once said writer's block is when your invisible characters don't talk to you. They say, okay, no one might ever read this. Tap, 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 tap. I wish I was down the wheel. Tap, 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 tap. Nobody might ever read this. Tap, tap, tap. Oh, look, 400 pages later. But I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So Tara obviously said, don't get it right, get it written. So we did that. And then it was a case of, got it written, now get it right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's kind of, you have to kind of clean it up. Luckily, I had a friend who worked for the United Nations.
Right.
And she said, I'll do it. I'll read your book and sort it all out and everything. So she had it for ages, probably about a month, 6 weeks. She come back, she found 3 things wrong with it.
Right.
In 400 pages.
Wow.
And you're like, right, okay. First of all, you can't do this. Why? Because you've done it there. Right, okay, that can be easily changed.
Uh-huh.
Secondly, try not to use the same word all the time. So go looking for words that mean the same, that will fit in there just as well. Okay, brilliant. And the third one was probably a description thing. The thing is with writing is you kind of got to pace it out. But I'm very much like, let's tell them what they want to know. Let's get it all done in 2 pages, but it really needs to be done probably in 20 pages.
Right, right.
But hey,
okay, so
it was done. It was done. So then, it was a case of there's a book in the library called the Writers Guild and Handbook. Tara's like, I've done all I can with you.
Uh-huh.
It's now between you and publishers and agents and writers, and that's kind of like where we are. But I saw her after. I saw her after an event. She did an event in a bar, and I said, Tara, I've not got the book or anything. I've got the piece that inspired it, and I can do a couple of pieces. And she's like, right, okay, do them. So people come on and they do their books and their stuff and whatever. And at the end, she calls me over and she's gone, you know what? You were brilliant. I'm like, okay, because you did something that nobody else did.
Yeah.
So, everyone, look at my book, look at this, look at this. you've come on, you said, look, I've not got a book, but I've written one, and this is the piece that's inspired. And I stood there, not so much as like Tara Moore, protege and all that. It was more like your mother would stand and think, that's my boy. And he's done really well.
Great.
So that was quite funny. So that was good, yeah, good. So we'll see.
Okay. But I guess you haven't managed to get it published.
Not at the minute. But the thing is, if it does get published, brilliant. If it doesn't, then I've still done it. And she said, this might never get published, but you've written it. And because you've written it, that makes you an author.
Yeah. That's a really important thing. So if there's listeners and watchers of this, is there any publishers out there that are interested in Carl and his book and interested in Carl and his poetry? I'll get him to read some more poetry again in a minute. Then let us know. Let me know. He's an old friend of mine. We've known each other for years. We've got a very old mutual friend who used to work in the television shop with years ago. Really Fusion in Margate. Hence the reference to Zap the Grids. Explain the Zap the Grids thing.
Okay, Zap the Grids was a phrase well used in a shop I used to work in. We used to close at about 5:30. About 5:20, you think we need to close up. And you get off your chair, and this guy, Alan, who's an absolute top bloke, would say, wait. And then at about 5:25, you go, zap. And zapping the grids just basically means bringing the grill round on the front of the shop.
Yeah.
So that's all it meant. But we had some times, that boy, mad time.
You used to get people stop at the shop window to watch the football results.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did, yeah. On a Saturday about 5:45. So we conveniently put all the tellies on ITV because they didn't show them, which was quite funny. And everyone's like, oh, do you know how Chelsea got on? Do you know how Liverpool got on? No, sorry. You normally have it in the window. Yeah, never mind. We had it all on in the shop.
Just to stop people crowding around the window.
Yeah, stop people crowding around the window. Or you'd come on and you'd see people and you'd think, can't afford it.
Yeah, I can remember Alan telling me a few of those stories as well.
Don't even bother coming in.
Okay, so it's time for a bit more poetry.
Yeah.
Things.
Okay, so I'm thinking, like, what am I going to do with this today? And I thought, as writers and as people, we all kind of love a story. So this story was told to me by a gypsy girl in a place I can't quite remember, on a night I'd rather forget. And this is called A Gypsy's Tale. She'll spin you a story that's woven with lace, that is ages old, like the lines on her face. And she'll tell it with passion and with wit and charm, but remember to cross with silver her palm. Her story begins on a ship full of gold, when slaves were brought, dreams traded and sold, where merchants and pirates would no doubt chance their arm, but remember to cross with silver her palm. The story continues in tempestuous seas, where sickness and fear drown out a man's plea. With anger Poseidon, voice cries in alarm, but remember to cross with silver her palm. The story now takes a turn for the worst, as each man's considered a blessing or curse, and the sea remains angry and is yet to be calm, but remember to cross with silver her palm. The four winds will drive them on their noble crusade, safe passage and travel, and a debt to be paid, and a cargo aboard that will entice and charm, but remember to cross with silver her palm. But this gypsy's tale is not to everyone's taste. Swashbuckling adventures and a love lost in haste, and a ship upon rocks, and moments from harm, but remember to cross with silver her palm. Her story remains unresolved to this day. The scallywags and scoundrels have all had their say. But if you cross paths with silver, then you may well prevail, and you could write the ending to this gypsy's tale.
Excellent. I remember hearing that one a few years ago. Yeah, that was. I can remember you used to read a bit in the wheel, didn't you?
Yeah.
At the time, and the acorn when it was open.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
our favourite walking hole, wasn't it?
There's times in there.
We did. I can remember. There's some funny little stories I can remember. We were sitting down with a mutual friend, and I can it made you laugh, didn't it? Because this gentleman said, I was talking to Paul the other day,
Oh, yeah.
and I said, "What, Paul the Apostle or
Paul from the band?"
Paul from the band." And you corpsed, didn't you?
That's funny. It's just that and frankincense. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
Chris Francis.
yeah,
And we were trying to somehow mould the kind of the three gifts from the Christmas story into a conversation, and we got like the myrrh and gold.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Chris goes, frankincense. Frankincense, gold, myrrh, more probably like tainted metal. Which is quite funny.
Yeah. Okay, so we were talking earlier because you kind of we didn't see each other for ages because see my friend Carl here he ended up getting Twitter pages, didn't you? You met your wife.
Yep. Brilliant Jill, who I owe a great lot to, and totally changed my life around, and we are very, very happy.
Yeah.
Good.
I can see a great joy in you since that happened. So that sort of kind of that took you away from the pub for a little while, didn't it?
Yeah.
As it does.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah. Great stuff doing that. Okay. So is what sort of poets inspired you, Carl?
I don't know. As a kid, I never had like sort of Wordsworth or Dickens or whatever on the wall. You know,
Uh-huh.
people would have like Kevin Keegan and all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Really, there's a couple really. I went to school, and there was an English teacher, a guy called Mr. Foxwell, who was an American chap, and his lessons weren't so much lessons; they were more like practical demonstrations.
Right.
So he would say, "Right, today we're going to talk about anger." So two people volunteered. Let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, Carl and Mark.
Right.
Right. So he would say, "Right, for the next 30 seconds, Carl laying to Martin. Go. When I say stop, blah 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 blah. Stop. Carl, 16, English class. Martin, 15, English class. How did you feel? What about you, Martin? Anywhere but here. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And he said, all you guys write down what you see, whether it was tension, this, whether it was forward, whether it was a tone, whether it was like kind of, you know, the way they reacted, the way they played. I guarantee I've got 30 pieces of work that are different because you all saw something.
Yeah.
Wow, who's this guy? Who's this guy? About to kind of change my world. And then I thought, if I'm going to be a writer, and I've always ever wanted to write, even as a young kid, best thing you can do, here's a piece of paper. Brilliant. So I went to college, met the most amazing teacher. Now, I know I've had two amazing teachers, but even you know, advanced in years as we are, you still remember. And her name was Katie Machin. And Katie Machin is probably to this day the best teacher that I've ever had. Because I went to college and did nights on a Monday, 3 hours on a Monday, 6 till 9. First thing she said to us, it's a lovely day in Canterbury, isn't it? I really want to go to college, can't be bothered. Be bothered. So she told me all about personification, writing, giving things an identity, structure. So the first piece of work we did for her was about things in Canterbury. So I remember it well. I walked up and down Canterbury High Street, noted a few people on the park bench, noted the guy in the doorway, noted this, noted that, noted the big issue seller, noted this. And my last line of that piece was, my mind goes back to Rocky. People who make homelessness and life on the street such a big issue. And when she read it, no word of her life, she's like, I can't teach you. I can teach you structure, I can teach you punctuation, both of which you need. I can teach you layout, I can teach you this. What I can't teach you what to say. And to this day, she's the most amazing girl. And I saw her a few months after we left, and I didn't even remember it was her. And she walked past me and gone, hey, all right. And like you walk on about a few steps and you suddenly realise who it is. Who it is. And I suddenly thought, hang on, that's Katie Machin. So I've gone, yeah, I'm all right, thank you. And she's down by where the Westgate is. So you're shouting down the high street and thinking, what's that guy doing? Mad fool.
Did you go and catch up with her? Or
No,
did you?
I didn't.
That's a shame.
Yeah. But I think the thing is, teachers, you always think, like, I wonder whatever happened. Maybe people come and go in your class that you remember and think, he had a bit of talent that way, or she had a good understanding of what I was teaching. I wonder if they actually went on and did something with it.
Yeah.
You mentioned 28 people in the class. You think, no, but I remember her, and I remember her, and I remember him.
Yeah.
And just thinking, like, I wonder if they did it. They showed a little bit of understanding of what we were trying to say.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing about people that are teachers, about teachers, isn't it? That's what they do. That's their motivation for being a teacher. Isn't it?
If one person, two persons come out of my class with a greater understanding of what I'm trying to teach them, or I've sparked something in them, then what I've taught them and the way I've taught them and my efforts have been totally worthwhile.
Yeah. Carl, I want to ask you the perennial question that I ask nearly all of my guests from my podcast.
Okay.
And that is, what brings you peace?
I think peace is just like being surrounded by good things. I love the bay. I can quite happily go down the bay and spend some major time. I don't know if a lot of people said because there's water, you feel like you cast your woes and your troubles on the cares on the sea, and it just takes it away. Got the love of my brilliant wife. She's a port in a storm sometimes, and she's like, okay, calm down, we'll be all right, and yeah, so I think a lot of things, bring that. But I'm not a person who's kind of easily agitated up or easily angered. I don't think. I think I'm quite a calm person to begin with.
Yeah.
So hopefully good things. Surround yourself with good things. You'll be all right.
I was struck by your enthusiasm when I meet you, because it's something that's got, like the story about Tara and so on. And you told me that story with such enthusiasm
Yeah.
and such excitement. It was the excitement of discovering something new.
Yeah, totally.
Look
what I've done.
Okay, but any plans to write any more books, do you think?
Or I don't know, really. You sort of think, this is the problem that you have. It's like, you write a book, not writing another one, that's bad enough. Where authors actually, you think, okay, this is really worth drawing. I think poetry will always be my first love. I think there's a poet called Joel Taylor who is a poet coach, and she taught me lots about stagecraft and going on stage. She said the thing is, you leave it in a book or you have it on an iPad and you save it.
Yeah.
First thing she said to me, learn your work, because if you hold an iPad or you hold a book, your stage or your world is that. So I've just drawn a picture of a square for people listening on the radio there. So just drawn like a rectangle to show the confines. If you hold a book, that's your space. If you learn your work, like walking about, look at this, look at this, look at this. You know, so this is a story about a gypsy, or this is a story about a number. Or this is a story about. There's a poem I wrote called Rise, and that's about a girl called Zoe, and she also said, you know, reading poetry, writing poetry go hand in hand. Also listening to people and what makes them spark, what makes them say what they've got to say. And the way you normally read it's the opening lines of Rise. It's Zoe left home at 17. So first of all, this is about a girl who's 17 who's left home. That's what we glean from line 1. On the blackest day she'd ever seen. Okay, so something's happened that made Zoe leave. And you kind of build it up, you build a picture of it, or you put a block in place. And you think, okay, so that's that. Okay, so what we learned from stanza 1, we're now going to take into stanza 2. You know, this and this and this and this, and you end up with blocks through people. And I was a great believer in that the space between the words is the glue that holds the piece together.
Right.
Okay, so it's like the bit blue, house on the hill was yellow, a bit more blue, hold that down, put that down. Also, I think it's going to sound mad, it's a really good idea whenever you pick up a pen to write, have it on the table, because then all the brilliant words come to the front.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
And you're like, oh, great. So it's like, shh, I'm just miming now writing, and you're like, well, that's brilliant. Not that's brilliant, as someone else said, but you know, that's very good. I also think in certain poetry, there are things that are called walking lines, and it's the piece of the poem, the piece of the poem that will open the whole poem up. So it might be, come take a walk with me, come see what I see, come do what I do, come and see this, come and see that, come and see that. A few things about poetry also, whatever poetry you read will say one of two things. It will either say, what do you see? Or it will say, what am I saying?
Okay. So it's you're inviting someone into your world, aren't you?
It's exactly that.
And also, when you invite people in, they can have their own. A bit like you were saying earlier about the example of when at school, everybody sees it from their own perspective, so they've all got their own story to tell as a result of what they've seen. So people can interpret the poetry in their own way.
Exactly.
And it can inspire people, or it can touch people. I think there's that there's almost like a bit of transference goes on when you hear something that's really meaningful.
Indeed.
And it it can be a piece of fiction, or it can be somebody telling giving testimony about something that's happened in their lives.
Yeah.
And I experienced that yesterday because I was at a mental health summit yesterday, and there were people up on stage, probably about 400 or 500 people there, and there were people up on stage that were giving their testimony of frontline working in mental health and how it affected them. It was really powerful to hear those testimonies, and I actually found that a lot of it touched me as well.
Yeah, cool.
And so the transference is a little bit okay. That's her story, but
I can totally relate to that.
I can relate to it, and it reminds me of my experience and it's not what that experience is; it's about how it affects us.
Yeah. Totally.
You know?
Somebody said the thing is with poetry, it's got kind of a deceptive magic. It won't do anything until later on in the evening. So you hear it, you go home, you sit on the end of the bed and you think, oh, that's really right. Or, that's really effective. Or I need to get my own pen and start writing or something. You know. 2 quick stories. One, I did a poetry performance in a place called Bohemia in Broadstairs, which is sadly no longer there. 2 girls came up to me, asked exactly the same question. We need to have a talk. Okay. First girl, we need to have a talk, said, everything you said tonight could have been about me. Everything you said. So like, okay, we've done some heavy stuff. So I said, okay, what are you going to do? So, what do you mean, what am I going to do? So you're going to go home and write about the story of your life? Or you're going to go home and write a little bit about what happened tonight in the hope of getting some stuff out? Or I've shown you how it can be done. It's up to you. Whether she did or not, I'm quite happy not knowing.
Yeah.
Second girl comes up, she goes, we need to have a talk. So I said, first of all, before we do, that's not an English accent. So she goes, no, I'm from Australia. So I said, I hope you haven't come all the way from Australia to see me. So she goes, no, my girl said, like, we're going to go and see some poet bloke tonight. Really? So she said, yeah. And I'm like, oh, go on your own, girl. No, Lawrence, who owned the Bohemia. Oh, this guy's really good, really good. So she goes, you won me over. For you, thanks. You've got a bit of girl in you, mate, haven't you? She said. So she goes, you've got a bit of girl in you, mate. So I said, why do you say that? She goes, because I don't know a guy who can write like a girl, like you can. So I'm like, oh, okay. You need to let her out a bit. So yeah, okay, thank you.
So I guess it's probably maybe that's part of your soul, part of who you are. There's something.
There's probably a strand of stuff in me.
Yeah, it's the way, maybe it's the open way you express stuff. You're able to say what it really means without any. You take those risks, those safe risks to actually stating how it is.
I think that's the thing. I think again, as we were saying earlier, as writers, we've been given quite a task to write what we see, especially in this day and age. In the hope that people might read it, it unlocks the door, or it turns a key, or sets them thinking. There is a possibility that I don't have to be this way, or this situation will change. Going back to Joel Taylor, she wrote a poem called The Last Tide Standing, and in that page there is a line that says, that makes every tower block of open it, there's hope. And I think as long as there's hope, only 4 letters, and it means a lot to so many. If there's hope, then this might change. If there's hope, then they might come home. If there's hope, then we don't have to carry on the way we are.
Thank you, Carl. Listen, this has been a really nice little chat with you today, catching up with you. I've been wanting to do this for a long while, because when I first had the idea about poetry podcast, you were the first person I thought of. And I tried to contact. I've lost contact with you. I remember leaving you a message. He's not on Facebook anymore. I might get a chance to bump into him one day. And then I'd done the first poetry one, and then it was just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He came up and said, I'd love to do that.
You get a name check in this or something,
Yeah,
and I'm like, I've got to find this just to say I've listened to it. So
it worked out really well. So it's about, for me, about doing this, and the podcast Peace Unplugged is about well-being. And I see that poetry is something that can be really good, or writing is something that's very therapeutic to people. It's therapeutic to write itself, but it's also therapeutic to read it, and it creates connections between us as human beings. So, thank you, Carl,
Okay.
and I'll see you for a pint at some point.
We'll do it again.
We'll do it again sometime. So, if there's anybody out there that's been inspired by Carl's poetry, then drop me a line. You can email me dexar@googlemail.com. That's DECKSAR@googlemail.com. And if you want to be a guest on my podcast, then you're welcome to do so. Thank you very much. Stop that. That's skits we used to do.
Oh, the Confucius say. I can't remember.
Oh,
Something to do with football, wasn't it?
It was to do with football. Oh yeah, it was.
Greece against Brazil or something.
Or was it Germany? Greece against
Germany.
Germany.
Might have been Germany.
It was the unexpected.
Confucius checks his son and away we go, wasn't it?
Confucius tests the sundial.
And it was a long shot by Aristotle or someone, or Archimedes.
Archimedes. Oh yes, that's it. The unexpected introduction of Archimedes.
Comes on, this guy's about 150 years old, isn't he? Beard down to his floor, and there's a big kind of robe on him.
He goes, Eureka, isn't it?
Eureka. I've worked it out. He had all the map on the thing.
But he was offside.
Allegedly.
No, he was.
Yeah, but they didn't have
If
VAR
you look
back
at that
then.
sketch, that goal was definitely offside. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow, like and share. Thank you very much. Martin, Peace Unplugged.